What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. It's real fun here. It's real fun. To everyone else, hi and welcome back. I hope y'all having a good weekend. Y'all, I have been working on this video for so long. This took me so long to do. I've been trying to get this video finished and uploaded to y'all since Tuesday. It's Saturday. But y'all, my whole life is a little bit delayed and behind, honey, because I still need a retwist. I'm walking around here looking like Jay-Z and Basquiat by the roots, okay? I'm slowly getting back into the fold and the things, you know? It's a process. But anyway, that's not why we're here. We are here today for you to sit here and listen to 4 stories that are either based on a true event or completely made up by me. All the stories are written by me. I just want to say that because people try to cheat the system and they're like, no, that story sounds like how you talk. The concept is based off of one of my favorite little shows back in the day. I was a real creepy kid into all the creepy things, beyond belief, fact or fiction. If you know, you know. Okay, same concept. I have 4 stories for you guys, and yeah, we're gonna see how well you do, if you can figure out which ones are real and which ones really didn't happen. And of course, at the very end of the video, I will reveal the answers, and yeah, I'll judge you based off of your accuracy. And without further ado, let's get into story number 1. Blood on the Moon. Shout out to the witches and justice for the witches. You know what I'm saying? I didn't write this story from a place of anti-witchery. I didn't at all. I just wrote it from the narrator's point of view. Now, whether or not this person really exists, that's on you to figure out, okay? And for me to tell you at the end. I didn't cry until New Year's Eve. Jeremy dumped me over Christmas break. Not a conversation, not even a phone call, just a 3-line text. I just can't do this anymore. And I respect your choice, but I'm not gonna wait forever. Take care. And he didn't even have the balls to answer his phone when I called, nor respond to any of my subsequent text messages. A coward. Almost a whole year wasted. When I told him up front that I'm saving myself for marriage, which he insisted wasn't a problem, continued to pursue me, plan vacations with me, talks about post-grad life together with me, just to end it like this. A text over Christmas break. Anyway, I got back to the campus 2 days before class started, dreading every hallway and familiar spot, even my own room with all our photos still plastered everywhere. I rent a room out of a 5-bedroom house near school, and college housing roulette is real. People came and went in between semesters often, and my old roommate Jamie had moved out, and now in her place across the hall from me, Alyssa. When I got back to the house, Alyssa greeted me with a soft smile, warm eyes, and a glass of cheap red wine. And I could tell she had just saged the place. She seemed cool, and it turned out to be just the night that I needed. We sat and drank and talked about life. Alyssa was a few years older, 24, and she had this effortless vintage witchy aesthetic. All black clothes, messily styled hair, crystal rings. Had things to say like, Mercury's in retrograde, babe, and trauma lives in the body, for encouragement, I guess. It's not that I trusted her right away. I just liked having somebody to talk to and vent out all of these frustrations. Alyssa would knock on my door some nights with snacks and wine, asking how I was holding up and if I wanted to vibe and vent. And one night I told her about Jeremy, about why we broke up, and she listened so intently, head slightly tilted. And the only thing she had to say about the whole situation is, you're stronger than you think. Virginity isn't a weakness, it's power. 3 weeks in, her friends started coming over frequently, which the frequency wasn't the thing. It was how weird they were. Always nice, but very eerie. Something about their smiles was unsettling, and they always held their gazes for what felt like about 6 seconds too long. One of them, Eden, brushed my hair out of my face and said, "Your aura is still soft. That's rare." Whatever the hell that means. As weird as they were, I never felt threatened though, until things got weirder. I woke up to use the restroom one night, and as I passed her doorway, I noticed a soft amber glow coming from underneath it, and their voices chanting harmoniously and too low for me to make out what they were saying. It was a soft, low, rhythmic chant, and again the smell of burning sage. And something else was very thick in the air. I stood there listening for about 4 repetitions, and then they stopped mid-chant as if they suddenly knew I was there listening. I don't know what they had going on, but when I went back to bed, I locked my door and did so just in case every night thereafter. But a few nights later, something happened that made me realize locks didn't mean safety. I wake up in the middle of the night, eyes open but my body frozen. Panic began to set in because I realized I couldn't move. and I couldn't scream. My chest felt like a weight was pressing down on it, and at first I thought this was one of those sleep paralysis things people talk about until I shifted my eyes toward the door, which was wide open. And in the dark, Alyssa stood there, perfectly still, her silhouette framed by the hallway glow. She didn't move, she didn't speak, she just stood there, watching me. I tried to self-soothe and convince myself I was dreaming, but when I finally jolted awake, for real, heart racing, my door was cracked open the exact same way. The door I had locked the night before. I didn't just lock my door for the rest of this night. I shoved my desk chair up under the handle as well, but it still didn't help me fall asleep. Now, the next morning, I didn't start off with the intent to snoop. I was actually looking for my spare car key and opened the drawer in a hallway console table and saw a photo of me that I hadn't taken or had printed, and on the back was written pure. I knew this was Alyssa's doing it. Had she been home, I wouldn't have wasted any time asking her about it directly, but since it was our heaviest day of classes, she'd be on campus for most of it, giving me ample time to snoop. I knew the girl was a bit the craft coded, so I wasn't too surprised to see her room laced with crystals, tarot decks, candles, and all of those things, but what I was shocked to find on her desk is a printout on energy transfer instructions, handwritten ritual steps, and notes about human sacrifice. Then another photo of me, taken from my Facebook profile with a few strands of hair taped to the back of it. My hair. On top of the desk next to it are 3 press-on nails from my previous set that I had popped off while we were drinking and talking, with pieces of my natural nails still stuck on the bottom. Alyssa and her witchy group of misfits were planning something against me, and I'm so glad I was nosy enough to look, or maybe my intuition led me there. Either way, things got messy. I grabbed the things and made a fuss about it to the police, the school, and our landlord. I needed her gone, or to be out of my lease ASAP. The police, the school, they didn't do much about it, but my landlord did allow me to leave. I also filed for an order of protection against her, and she acted like I was overreacting and claimed it was harmless entertainment, nothing more. But I was not about to let it slide and take my chances. I want to know what you think. You think this is a little piece of fact, or you think it's a little piece of fiction? And what would you have done? See, me, I would have had to wait for Alyssa at the door. Because, girl, we need to talk about this. And I would have searched every inch of that room. Do you hear me? Child, me and Alyssa would have had a good old misunderstanding. The old-fashioned way, okay? Fisticuffs. Story number 2. We needed a friend. Last year, my job had a paranormal day. As part of a spirit week, they started to boost morale. Nothing boosts morale like a raise, but companies will try anything but that. Anyway, we were encouraged to dress up in our ghouly fashions, bring a ghostly themed dish or snack for a potluck lunch, during which we were encouraged to share any real life ghost stories or weird things we've experienced. I wasn't going to say anything at first. I really didn't put much thought into it at all, but then I remembered, all right, Liam. When I was 5, I had an imaginary friend named Liam, a little boy about a year older than me. I talked to him constantly, like full-on conversations. I'd barely laugh at his jokes and took him everywhere I went. Liam was my best friend. According to my mom, he showed up very suddenly right after we moved into a new house and was always around. At the dinner table, in the backyard, in the backseat of the car, just always there. And if somehow I managed to leave home without him, I would throw a fit for my mom to turn back and go get him. My mom thought it was just a way for me to cope with all of these big life changes, the new house, starting big girl school, and we just lost my grandmother, so emotions were already heavy. He figured Liam was just my little brain's self-soothing coping mechanisms for a small child with not many more resources than her imagination. At times it was weird, but everyone felt it was ultimately harmless. Kids have imaginary friends, right? Plus, Liam wasn't any trouble. It wasn't like the situations you see in the movies where the kid is a terror and the imaginary friend is pulling all of the strings. He never told me to do anything bad. No scapegoating, or a scapegoating if you're hooded. Never got me into any trouble at all. He was just a piece of company. But then one day everything shifted. I was in the car with my mom, just me, her, and of course Liam in the back seat. We were driving down this long stretch of a road near our house when I suddenly got excited and pointed out the window. "Mommy, that's where Liam lives," I shouted from the back seat with excitement. She slowed the car and looked to where I was pointing. It was a cemetery. The look on her face, Baby, haunting. I've never forgotten the way her mouth dropped slightly open, the way she got real quiet, stared in the direction of the headstones, then glanced up at me in the rearview mirror with worried eyes before slowly returning back to the road, driving the rest of the way in silence. I remember wondering if I'd said something bad or something wrong, but I didn't press it. After a few moments of awkward silence, Liam cracked a joke and had me belly laughing and chatting like we did. And after that, things got strange. My family got strange. People became visibly uncomfortable anytime I brought up Liam, and I brought him up a lot. He was a huge part of my world, but it became clear that he made adults uneasy. So eventually I stopped talking about him to them, just tucked it away like kids do when grown folks start acting weird. And over time, I spoke about him and to him less and less. These days, of course, well into my adulthood, it's just a funny little story we laugh about as a family at gatherings. And as far as him living in the cemetery, my mom chalked that up to coincidence. She reminded me that the cemetery was where we buried my grandmother shortly after we moved into the house and right before I started seeing Liam. It was a lot going on, so maybe I got confused, made up a story, etc. Who knows? And honestly, that made sense to me. A grieving, overwhelmed 5-year-old imagining a friend to help her cope. Not too far-fetched. But here's where it gets real weird. I shared this story at the Paranormal Day luncheon, and my coworkers were so intrigued. Afterward, one came up to me. She asked, "Did you and your family ever check the cemetery's directory? Like, see if there was actually a little boy named Liam buried there?" And let me tell you, I had never thought to do that, not once, until now. And the urge to do a deep dive was too persistent to ignore or put off. About 20 minutes searching the World Wide Web, and there he was, Liam Jones, age 6, buried in the exact cemetery I pointed to as a kid, just 3 plots down from my grandmother. My stomach dropped. I sat there staring at the obituary, Liam's little gaze staring back, and it felt so familiar and oddly comforting. And now I'm sure that it wasn't just my imagination, it was something more. Liam was a real boy and a real friend. It makes me wonder if he just attached himself to me and started following me on one of the days we paid my grandma a visit, or if maybe she somehow facilitated the friendship, sent me a friend, like a little guide, a tiny protector, a playmate maybe to soften the blow of all the things going on. Several news articles had also come up in the search results, and the more I read, the heavier it got. Turns out Liam lived with his mom and her abusive boyfriend. A situation that ended tragically, leaving Liam in that cemetery and both adults behind bars. Maybe Liam and I both needed a friend. The boyfriend had already been executed and the mom had passed away from COVID. Since learning the truth, I never visit my grandma's grave without bringing something for Liam too. Little toy trucks, flowers, things I think he loved, and he deserves kindness. It's wild how something that seemed like childhood make-believe ended up being rooted in real-life tragedy and love and connection. So the thing is, with Miss Girl in this story, honestly, you know what? I was one of the little girls that had an imaginary friend. I feel like when you have an imaginary friend, that's a sign that your child is gifted. That's an early sign, okay? I was one of the girls who did have an imaginary friend for a while. And I'm curious to know how many of y'all had imaginary friends and what their intuition looking like today. I also, of course, want to know before you get to the end if you think this one is a fact. You think I made that up? And if you need a little more time to think on it to answer that question, you got it, because we still have 2 more stories to go. So let's get into story number 3, underneath it all. People always say you can tell what kind of life someone lived by what they leave behind, which is bullshit. Some of them, maybe, but most people just leave chaos, mess, junk they meant to throw away and never did. Things they look at and think they need or will eventually need and then never look at again. I clean out houses for a living and I've seen the craziest of things. I've staged houses that look like a nuclear garage sale blew through them mercilessly. Rotting food next to vintage Barbies, mountains of unread mail and old magazines, cat skeletons under couches. You become numb to most things that'll spook or disturb the average person of sound mind until the next thing so chilling comes along that disturbs you even more. I got hired on a job by Trevor Hale, real estate flipper, slick smile, and the kind of handshake that makes your skin crawl just a little. Clammy hands that he's very unapologetic about, which makes sense. You had to appear confident in his line of business, even if it's just an illusion. He said the job needed to be quick, but the payout was fat, and the catch? The house. Hoarder situation. Dead lady, no next of kin. It was a 2-person job, but I convinced him that I could get it done alone. I needed the double pay. Eleanor Wynn, the owner, had been a nurse. Older woman, reclusive, no spouse. No living children, no family. Died alone in the living room, they said, sitting upright in a broken recliner with the TV on. It was still on when they found her. I walked in and almost choked. The stench hit first: mildew, rot, sourness, and death. Then the clutter. I'd seen episodes of Hoarders, but to see it in person is something else. Every hallway, every room, packed shoulder high with newspapers, pizza boxes, unopened mail. And as chaotic as it felt, it wasn't just messy, it was deliberate, organized chaos. I should have walked away right then, but a week's worth of labor for 4 weeks worth of pay? I zoned in, gloved up, and got to work. Spent 6 days sorting through their hell house, furniture fused with walls, mouse droppings in places mice had no business being, handwritten notes on napkins that read like ramblings from someone halfway between genius and madness, jotted down during a manic panic. And on the 7th day, I found them. It was 8 glass jars, airtight and cold to the touch. They were stacked neatly behind a wall of hoarded mess in the back room. The room had been sealed off so well I nearly missed it. The first one had an arm in it. Pale, hairy, male. Yellow nails still intact. A label on the lid said David, 1087. The second held a foot, small, toenails painted. The third, a partial jaw. Each one perfectly preserved, like someone had cared enough to make sure they wouldn't rot and had been removed with surgical precision. I backed out of their room so fast and threw up in the living room. After another good 60 seconds of dry heaving, I regained my composure. I should have called the cops right away. I didn't. I sat in my car outside the house for damn near an hour after that. They looked respected, preserved like museum pieces, labeled in neat handwriting, sealed with care and with dates. They didn't look like murder trophies. That's the part that stuck with me. The more I thought about it, it didn't seem like a 911 issue. And old Eleanor was in the medical field for decades. Maybe I'm overreacting. I'll just finish cleaning up everything else and I'll leave Trevor to deal with the bins, is what I told myself. And that was the plan. Air conditioning blasting, heart still pounding a little faster than normal, I got back to work. And the jars weren't the only thing. I came across a stack of folders, medical files with logs, lists of dosages, symptoms, vitals, and journals. Eleanor was keeping track of them before their death and after. But how did the parts get there? I couldn't help but search their names on the net, and that's when I realized that this was a 911 issue. 2 of the names were of people reported missing, and I didn't think that was a coincidence. There were no reports of them ever having been found. I read and read, waiting to come across something that made all this make sense, but it never did, and eventually I just decided to call Trevor, let him clean up this last little bit. I told him what I found. He showed up to the house. Later I had to give a statement to police, but nothing more. The job was finished. I was paid the fee and my work there was done. For months, I would randomly search the net for information, but there never was any updates. And I wonder if they ever even reached out to those families. Miss Thing is just trying to get a check, okay? She was just out here trying to make it like all of us. She thought she was gonna do a 2-person job and be up a little bit. And she got a little more than what she bargained for. Child, would I have ever gone back into that house? After seeing the jars? No, I never would have. I never would have, would you? And child, at the sight of them bottles, glasses, jars, whatever they were, I would have just had to collect my little things, my little belongings, and never return. We could have figured out the percentage of how much money you owe me based on the percentage of the job completion. That's fine. I'm still up. But it's just no way you got a little foot soaking in water or whatever it's soaking in. And I'm just gonna dust around it. Now on to story number 4. Fire in my baby's eyes. I used to think that reincarnation was some woo-woo BS. Crystals, past lives, sound bowls, all of the things. But then my baby boy Luke looked me in my eyes and said, I don't like fires. I died in a fire. My heart stopped. A chill like none I'd ever experienced before or since crawled up my spine and has never quite left. Luke was always a bright kid, real observant and advanced. I called him my little old man. He always seemed a bit wiser than kids his age, was never one for fairy tales and no fears of the boogeyman. So when he started waking up screaming, like blood curdling, fight for your life screaming, I figured it was just night terrors, normal toddler stuff. He was 3 when that started. Then after came the drawings. At first they would be little houses with little fires everywhere, regular kid drawings, but with Luke, something always had to be ablaze. His dad joked that it was his art style, his signature, and said people questioned the greats like Picasso, Van Gogh, and Basquiat. The drawings progressively became more disturbing. Fires everywhere, stick figures with dark circles for eyes that were scribbled in so hard and deep that he almost tore through the paper. And he always drew a fireman wearing a fireman's helmet, just like the one that he began insisting on wearing everywhere from the moment he opened his eyes till he closed them for bed. Some days he would refuse to leave the house without it, and anytime I tried to get him to leave the house without it, he would throw a fit like he really believed it to be protecting him from any harm awaiting him across that door's threshold. He said it was just like his old one, and when I asked what he meant by that, because he had never owned one before this one, he said my first hat, the one I used to wear when I saved people. Luke said that he had a life before and it ended tragically in a fire during a rescue mission gone bad. And he would say this so, I don't know, like he was really recalling a memory, reminiscing about a time that had truly passed. Once I joked about it, poked fun sarcastically at him being a retired firefighting superhero, and he got so angry. Like he was very offended. He became emotional, talking about his failed efforts to save the people, about a building falling and him not being able to get out in time. It was the strangest thing. And this all just seemed so real to him. And he never liked fire. Even as a baby, he'd be startled by the flicker of a lighter. One day our housekeeper lit a vanilla candle in the kitchen while she cleaned. Luke walked in, saw the flame, and lost it, screaming, gasping, clutching his chest, full-on panic attack. I blew it out, got him calmed, and later he told me, I died just like that. The fire got too big and I couldn't breathe. My heart stopped. Very odd things for a 5-year-old to say. Like, what does he know about a heart stopping? I sat him down and asked him questions about it, like where had it happened to him and how old he was. We're over 2 years into this now. And up until this point, I had just gone along with everything, believing he'd grow out of it like the doctor said he would. I'd just been waiting for the day to come, but the waiting game was driving me nuts. It was worth looking into, I guess. Chicago, he answered. We're in Indiana, no family in Chicago. It's not far, but I know he's never been. I pulled out a notebook and took notes of everything he said, where he lived, his age. I asked if he remembered his name. Not Luke, but his name before. He sat in silence, obviously in deep thought, just long enough to make me begin to feel silly about asking these things, but then he said in a somber whisper, James, but everybody called me JT. Later, when I put him down for a nap, I started Googling and clicking through the old firefighter archives online. It took me a lot of digging, but I found it. An article about a building collapsing with people inside, and among the victims, Chicago fireman James J.T. Turner, age 36, newly married, father of 1, died when the roof collapsed during a rescue mission in a fire inside a tall building, just like Luke had said, in 1993. Just 3 months before Luke was born. When I saw his photo, I damn near dropped my laptop. He had my baby's eyes, and that same heavy sadness Luke even wears when he smiles. We contacted a child psychologist who specialized in past life memory recall, Dr. Bremer, and she did not believe that Luke was fabricating this and called it one of the most compelling cases she'd ever heard of. Her professional opinion is that this wasn't the result of Luke being exposed to this information through books or media, and his descriptions were too consistent, too vivid, and too historically accurate to have resulted from his own imagination. We were also glad to learn that there were no signs of mental illness. We had sessions with Dr. Bremer to help him process his feelings and these memories, and over time the night terrors became few and very far in between. It seemed to help, but I felt like I needed closure. The building that collapsed was now a 7-Eleven, and I got an idea. We drove to Chicago that summer. I didn't say where we were going, didn't mention anything about firemen or past lives or any of the things. As we approached the corner lot where the 7-Eleven now sits, I studied Luke. He got quieter in the back seat, and as I got closer, tears welled in his eyes. It's gone, he said. This used to be red. We used to park the truck there. And then he pointed his tiny finger to an empty spot in the parking lot. I didn't keep him there long, and during the drive home, I actually felt bad for exposing him to such heaviness. After that trip, he started talking less about before. The night terrors stopped completely. The memories faded slowly, and by Luke's 7th birthday, he wasn't mentioning a past life anymore and would even get confused when asked about it. I watched the memories slip away from him, but me, I never forgot. Now he says he remembers dreaming about fire sometimes as a kid, but nothing more. He still hates candles, claims they give him a headache, and he loves helping people. Wants to be a paramedic. I asked him recently, you ever think about being a firefighter? He paused, thought about it, then smiled with every part of his face except his eyes. They still carry that sadness I saw in JT's. And with that smile, he says, nah, I've already done that, remember? Kids. Alright, so what do you think? And what would you have done? They still accepting children down to the fire station because there's no way. That is the 4th and final story for this video, and I'm so curious to see how you did. Are you ready to find out? Do you have your final answers? Alright, so let's just go in order, right? Story number 1, blood on the moon. The roommates obviously preparing for a sacrifice, or appeared to be preparing for a human sacrifice. If you guessed that this story was made up, you would be correct. I made this one up, completely fiction, not based on a true event. If it's a girl somewhere who had this experience, I don't know anything about it. It wasn't in here when I wrote this, okay? Story number 2, we needed a friend. Now, if you guessed that this one was also made up, you would be wrong. This was actually based on a true story. I didn't change many events or facts or details. I came across this story on TikTok. I will actually link the lady's videos down below for you to check out and listen to her tell the story. I did change the names, and I changed the fact that she does visit him. I just made the little ending up because I felt so bad for the child. Jesus, I just felt so bad for the little boy. And so I just wrote that little piece in there because my little heartstrings have been tugged upon. In actuality, she said that she's never visited his grave because she's too afraid to, and that I believe she was considering doing so in the future, maybe. Story number 3. Underneath it all. This story, if you guessed, was fact. You would be wrong. This one was also made up, completely fabricated. Like I said, possible situation where this happened, girl, but if it did, I don't know nothing about it. And I can only imagine what people find in these hoarder houses when they clean them up. Story number 4, fire in my baby's eyes. This 4th and final story was fact. Now, the actual name of the child has been protected by the family for his, privacy, of course, but this is an actual documented case. It unfolded right here in the US, in the Midwest, during the early 2000s. Now, some of the quotes from the boy were, we were saving people and the ceiling fell. We wore heavy jackets and big boots. We had the red truck. The fire got too big. I couldn't breathe. My heart stopped. All of these things are things that child said to his mother. He would refuse to go near a fire station, barbecues they couldn't take him to because he was not down for an open flame under any circumstance whatsoever. Just like in the story, even a candle would trigger panic. And he'd have periods of going completely non-verbal after these attacks, or like periods of being worked up. The family did consult with a psychologist. The only details that I changed was that he recalled the name of the person exactly. In the story, he said a name that was eerily close to it. It wasn't exactly the name. Now, around age 6, just like in the story, the memories began to fade. Age 7, he was not remembering any of it, which is typical in these types of situations. Kids eventually stop remembering. And yeah, that is it. Let me know how well you did. How many of them you got right? How many you got wrong? I want to know. Do I need to make them a little harder? Were they easy? Don't forget to like the video before you leave. Share with a friend. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. We are not going to make this long, drug out, nor painful today. And I feel like my camera looks like, am I clear? Am I clear? Oh, look, it's a ghost, or like it's haunted in here. What was I saying? So without further ado, let's get into the story. Oh, wait, where my little list at? We don't even know which one's story number 1. Okay, hold on. Story order. I changed story number 2's name. I can't remember what it was. Jeez Louise. Episode 6. I know I changed the name. Am I tripping? I thought I changed the name. What would I have changed it to? I thought I came up with a better name. I know I came up with a better name that I liked better. Maybe I didn't. What the hell? Let me just making stuff up. I did not change the name anywhere. Damn. I guess it was this basic name that I'm about to say. We needed a friend. Liam needed a friend. Okay, no, we needed a friend. Let's just roll with that. Wait, that's the wrong one. I'm really tripping. Get it together. That is it. Those are the 4 stories. I want to know how you did. Why am I doing Superman arms, girl? In actuality, she says she never visited. Okay. And I can only imagine what people find in these hoarder houses when they clean them up, because my brain just misfired. Story number 4. My brain just misfired. Story number 4.